So I was going to do a little bit on in the Alter Rebbe. It's Sif Ayin Ches. But basically starts off. It's also a talk of behema chaya oyoif. L'she'ena ruyim b'Shabbos k'she'en chaim. That any live animals are considered muksa, and the smarter the Alter Rebbe says is because they're not ru'in on Shabbos. And he adds it over here. He says, so even if you have a bird that you can use, if a child is crying on Shabbos, so you want to use this l'sachik to calm him down, it's usher. Now, the emphasis is that the Shulchan, the other rabbis you can don't bring that lashon. That lashon really is based on a tosfos in Masech the Shabbos. Tosfos Mem Hey Amud Beis. So the Gemara there was discussing Shiloh just in general, whether Shimon holds a muksa at all. So it starts off the springing down a raya that Rav Shimon holds that a kina shel tarnegolos is at least muksa somewhat. It's muksa, it's a klisha malach t'leisur, but at least somewhat muksa. So the Gemara says that's lavdafka. That's it's because of the kina itself, because of the cane. He says it's could be hakamai kina the isbei afrayach mace. It's that he has an afrayach mace. He has a dead bird inside of it. So Tosfos says there. Tosfos and Hey brings. He says Pirush Ben Rav Yosef. The leinokin afrayach chai. Why doesn't it say the lashon of a live bird? Why does it have to come to a dead bird? Meaning you have a dead bird in it, so that's why it's a muksa. The dead bird, l'chayr is muksa machmas gufay, which even Reb Shimon is moide by Reb Shimon, even though he doesn't hold the muksa in general, but he holds a muksa for muksa machmas atzmai, muksa machmas atzmai, muksa machmas gufay by Eitzim Vavon Reb Shimon's moide. So Tosfos says, because if it was alive, it was the chai chazi l'sachik boy tinoikish kishaboicha. So that he brings Harav Yosef, Harav Rabbeinu Yosef on this, and Tosfos himself is toilik on it, and he brings rayas that rayas from Lashon the Gemara. He comes out basically coming out the masik that that he's connected that, and he holds that it was just saying agavarta, but at least so you see that itself is a machlokes rishonim. So the Alter Rebbe seems.
I can't hear it.
On the Gillian.
Oh.
Was that?
We missed a few words. It went blank for a few minutes, for a few moments.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, so the Rabbi Akiva Eiger, the Goyis Rabbi Akiva Eiger brings. He says, "Kol behema the Bechaber Paskins." He says the lashon is Kol behema chayav oif moided and I say b'chatzer. You're allowed to be moided b'chatzer. You're allowed to. That's what we're talking about. That you're allowed to in a chatzer. You're allowed to move it. If it's not, you're not allowed to actually pick it up. But you could just like push it a little bit, and it's. Mixas. Not matter the actual tilkel itself. We're not the tilkel b'mixas. So the Akiva Eiger says, well, also he says, call behema b'chayav oif. He says, you're not allowed to use the animal as a l'sachik boitinoik, to use it for for enjoyment and for playing with, for the children to play with. And he brings Tosfos, and he brings a Tosfos. This is about halachas katanos chelik aleph near the ishtamitele. So this is he's bringing a sefer halachas katanos. Halachas katanos says very very kitzer. He says if it's mutal taltal, he says sheilu and mutal taltal behema chayav oif latinuk lasachik by b'Shabbos. And the halachas katanos brings a Tosfos. He says from different Tosfos and Bava Metzia near the karilel shar kli kosher oisim ba'ezah davar miyuchid. he brings a Tosis in Bava Metzia. The emissaries there, Tosis really was talking about. He brings it out there for Shabbos also, but he's really talking about the halachas of Kalim when it comes to kinyanim for chalipin, what's considered payrus and what's considered payrus and what's considered keli. But he said the halachas katanas brings that and he paskins that way that it's mutter to be misachik to use a bird or an animal to be misachik to its chazi. He's really paskining like that part of that Rabbi Yosef in Tosfos, that if a behema is royal sachik by satinoik, it's not considered muksa at all. It's only behema that you have no use for on Shabbos. But if you have a behema that's useful on Shabbos, so then it is considered that small animals that children can use to play with on Shabbos, that's already considered it's not considered muksa. That's considered like it has a purpose, it has a use for it. But like I said,
we're talking about real animals here, not stuffed, right? Like a dog, a cat.
Yeah, real animals.
A bird.
Dog, cats, right? Exactly. Stuffed animals, the chayra would really get into the next. Would probably be negeya sif. The Alter Rebbe sif pei gimel. Where he says it's asur l'sachik b'kadva b'Shabbos v'Yom Tov. He says fish asur l'taltel b'nei taris kli alav v'yesh matir l'taltel l'sachik b'rishus, changes it to b'rishus hayachiv v'noigim mekadim l'hakev v'loy micha b'yadam v'loy yesh lam mishemus smuchu. Places there the Alter Rebbe is bringing there a machlokes rishonim with the Shulchan Aruch talks with the Gemara there. The rishonim talk about whether a kador is asur. And there's a few different reasons given. And one of them is because schoik is not considered enough of a tashmish, miyuchid tashmish, that you take something and make it into a toy. There's manazeh, there are many places, first of all, with the Mechaber, the Ramaz Mekel and the Alter Rebbe's Mekel. There's people who hold up as manazeh, our toys are just manufactured differently, much more. There's a whole industry for it, so that it wouldn't be really considered in the same way. They were much more primitive in those days. The bulls weren't really, they could definitely see something not be considered a kli. But right now we're talking about regular live animal. So
just before you move on, I'm saying just I know we went off topic, but the bulls these days, which are inflated, is a separate issue. Right? You're talking like the Alter Rebbe Kadik, you're talking about a ping pong ball or a ball which doesn't need air, but if it's inflation, if it's inflated, then isn't there a separate issue with it?
That could be that there's people who hold that a bull that like a gazera that you might come to blow it up on Shabbos. I'm not sure. I don't recall anybody actually saying that it's a problem. But I'm assuming what you're talking about. I know that some people hold that by bicycle, they shot about blowing the air in a bicycle. There's a gazelle you might come to blow up the bicycle. I think I've seen. I never really seen that there's a gazelle you might come to blow it up. But that's the only thing I could think you're talking. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, that's what I was. I just always heard that
you might come to blow things up.
Yeah, basketball or football is different than, let's say, a ping pong ball or a ball which doesn't have air in it, which is not pumped up. You hear me? I can hear you.
It's froze.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing it.
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry. I don't know I don't know what happened there. That was my internet. So I'm not sure if there's. You were talking about maybe there's a gazelle you might come to blow it up. I'm not sure. I haven't really heard one, but the kadar itself, we paskin the Alter Rebbe really paskins meikar adin. It's mutter. There are people who hold up as manazeh. A lot of the chashashim don't really apply. And Derek Cloud, there's three shittas and what's the Yisr of a Kador. One of them is because of Tiltul, one because of Rishus Harab, and one is because of Bittul Torah. So a lot to discuss about things like right now we're just talking about regular live animals. So the Alter Rebbe, the Taisus in Shabbos brings, there's two machlokes in Taisus in Shabbos, whether Roy Lasachik Boy makes it that's not longer considered muksa or not. The Alter Rebbe says his lashon, he's paskani clearly brings the Taisus sheet, the Keneged Rabbeinu Yosef in Taisus. Rabbeinu Yosef in Taisus says that since it's right, so then it's going to be it's not muksa. But Taisus himself is chaylik, and the Alter Rebbe paskins that obviously clearly brings that second sheet of Taisus as the psak halacha that roy lasachek is not considered. It's not enough. If we keep Eger's Mitzayin, the halachas katanos, who says that roy lasachek is enough, it's not considered muksa. That the hemos that are muksa are that you can't. No one likes to. I guess that aren't pets, aren't good for pets. But if things are good for pets, and not muksa at all. That's what the halachas katanos. But it's clear from the Alter Rebbe not like that. And Rabbi Kiva Eger himself is Mitzayin that the halachas katanos missed the end of that Tosfos, or basically he said it was. He says ishtamute. He's left out that Tosfos. But the emes is like this. It could be a chilik that there could be a chilik. Hold on a second. There could be a chilik to be brought that. There comes. I didn't see what that just said, but there could be a chilik to be brought to say that that there's a difference if you're miyachid it specifically for that or not. And Rav Moshe, the Igros Moshe, Rav Moshe in his Chuvas, it's really from the later Chalakim. It was printed, about 25 years ago after he died. But I've heard this brought from his son. From his son was said it over in his name. I've heard it from Reuven Feinstein. He says it very clearly. He holds his lashon is kol baalei chayim havli muksa afilu oisim shekinoikis mesachik ben elim kein heim yuchadim l'shashurim, unless they are designated specifically for shashurim, for to be played with. So he's mitzay. Moshe basically, because Moshe holds that even if you're going to go like the Alter Rebbe, even going to go like the Taisus Svara, that the royal asachik is enough to make it not muksa. But he said that's only if it's something that's only royal asachik. It wasn't specifically said for that. It was something that you could. We should say small. There was a Taisus in Shabbos wanted to say that all small birds were Yosef, that any small bird or any small animal is never going to be muksa because it's always royal asachik. But Moshe says it's not. But he says if you're miyachid it specifically for that, then it's not. But the emphasis, the halachas of the Tanis mitzvah of Chaim Zerua, and I found the Das Torah here also brings it. The Das Torah brings it, and his lashon is from the Chuvas Aruch, which the Chaim Zerua also brings. His basic svara is he says within tzipar miyuchid letzaptzef koil shir imut letalta lekolvoi. He says it's because people are nana from the nana. There's a svara that said they're not considered nana, and he brings basically he says. And it's really more for the Chuvas Aruch like that also, that once Chazal made the gather of muksa for Balei Chayim have like a whole nother level of other madrega. And loy plug rabbanon b'balei chayim, and that's the lashon of the of the rush, which is basically Keneged the Moshe is just saying that Svara, even if it's Roy, even if it's mashmoisiv is that Bechlal, Balei Chayim are never, you can never say that a Balei Chayim is just going to be Miyuchid, it's going to be like bottle, going to become something they have a certain amount of cheshivus on their own. And since they have a cheshivus like Plug Chachamim, the Chachamim put them all in one gather, and you don't divide up different cases. Once Chazal say that all Balei Chayim are considered muksa, so we have to consider all of muksa. So it comes out really a three-way machlokes, whether any behema that's roy at all to be used the sachik masatinoikos or to be used as entertainment or pleasure, leisure, whatever people get out of it. That is it's mutter b'chlal, not muksa. The other thing, which is the Kaisis and the Kiveger, and like you have the Rebbe Paskins, Roy itself doesn't make it not muksa. But and then the shaila is the machlokes in the later achronim is something that if yachid dafka for these type of things, which is basically out the most what do you call it? Most pets, domestic households these days, where they're specifically used for interaction with people and for people to use them. So then already comes into machlokes without the Rebbe. I don't know exactly. I guess it's really, you can be clear with that. I don't know exactly, how, if it's one way or the other. It's definitely paskening that just being roy kach is not. It's not clear what he would pasken if it's mamish meyuchid, if it's mamish meyuchid lekach. A few other things is an interesting view halacha.
Can I just ask you? You just one thing. So on the second way, which is the derech of Shulchan Rav and also Rabbi Kiveger, that roi doesn't make it not muktzah. You said, right?
Right. Doesn't take off muktzah.
But if they were miyachid, just like an Evan, you're miyachid before Shabbos to break a nut, right? It's okay. Then according to Alter Rebbe and Rabbi Kiveger, it's mutter, no problem, right?
It's possible. It's not clear. It's not clear from. I'm not saying one way or the other. It's not clear from the Alter Rebbe. I don't think. Because
I'm pretty sure that the Alter Rebbe said earlier on in the Tesvav, and also I'm pretty sure in Sifnun Gimel, Alter Rebbe said about if you're taking a kli which something which doesn't have Teresh kli alav, like let's say an Evan, you miyachid before Shabbos, you dafka have in mind. So then for that Shabbos, it's okay. So the why can you do that to behemi? So your dog, you miyachid it as your friendly pet. I don't know, keep you warm, whatever it is.
That would be a svara. That would be a svara. But like I said, the lashon of the Chuvas and Rosh was that Balei Chayim are like plug. That was his lashon. The Das Torah brings it in. Marsham brings it here. So it's definitely possible in svara. Everything you're saying would be the most stavritic thing. That's if you miyachid something la'olam, the divides up into three places. However, brings if either things that are roy that go both ways, and it has to be miyachid la'olam. If it's something if it's things that are used for both, so then it needs even yichud for one Shabbos. If it's not, it needs yichud l'kolish for l'olam. But for sure, animals, people buy animals, they're keeping their miyachid and l'olam for that also. So it's in Pashas, it should be mutter. You're right, in Pashas it should be mutter. But there are shitas that from the lashon, the mashmois of the Chuvas Arosh that the Marsham here brings is that like plug chachamim by Balei Chayim. Balei Chayim are their own category, and they consider muksa b'chlal. Like it's like even though by Yavanim and Eitzim and everything that then yichud works, it's possible to say that by behemoths it doesn't work. It's possible they're like chashuv enough that you can't just be miyachid them. Just doesn't yichud doesn't work. I don't know if I think this is what to discuss on that.
Okay, because it's definitely just happened to be this past Shabbos. I saw someone. I see people walk the dog, but this person I was a little bit. I wouldn't expect him to. He was walking his dog. His dog was walking him. His dog was leading. But I was actually thinking about it. I was wondering about it. So.
Right. So that's the. So there happens to be in the svaras. There's an interesting bir halacha. I looked now. I didn't see any. There's an interesting Bir Halacha. He makes a big chiddush. This doesn't affect everything. It affects something. He has a chiddush that it's in Shin Beis, and he holds that the seyar, the hair, the fur of an animal is not muksa. Not exactly clear why. He says that he brings it in Shin Beis, the Shulchan Aruch Paskins. Alter Rebbe brings this also. He doesn't bring this. He just says it like everything else. That if your hands are dirty, you can wipe them off on the zanov of a sus or a para. I don't know people do these days, but you're mechanchim bezanav a sus bezanav a para. So the Bir Halacha says, he brings a Mamar Mordechai who says that it must be talking about when the tail is cut off of the animal, because if the tail is on the animal, it's muksa. So how could you wipe your hands on the tail of an animal? So the Bir Halacha says that he says Ulay Mustafinon, his lashon is he says no posek ever says anything. Maybe it's not a list of things he says. Umashik, she says, after the asur rak gufan de balechayim v'loy b'sa'aron shu mechuber lehen the chashuvi ki gufan b'zeh. So it's an interesting thing in general. He holds that if it's like the ikar, the animal itself is the only thing that's muksa, the hair. If it's roilik for something else, it's not considered that goes along with his line that it's not doesn't have the cheshivas of Baal Chayim, and it could be that's not muksa. But in general, technically walking a dog, you're not really moving it. You're not really being metaltal it. And then the only thing you get to is like what the Alter Rebbe himself is saying, which is open the Shulchan Aruch based on the Gemara in Ayin Ches, is that if they're in the Rosh Hashanah or in the Carmelists or whatever, you're allowed to be medadet. You're allowed to pull them and drag them because it's Tzar Balechayim. So it's possible another svara when you're walking the dog, there's going to be that you're not actually touching it. You're just like leading it, and then maybe there's a svara of Tzar Balechayim that it needs to get out, it needs a walk. So it's Tzar Balechayim. But like I said, there are people who hold that domestic pets are considered they lose their category of muksa b'chlal if you meyachid them. If you're meyachid on lakach, so I guess most. I don't know. It's 100% clear from the
There's also these days also behemoths are also roy to get a yerusha v'chuli. So maybe taka.
Exactly. Life is different. Exactly. It could be the Rishonim never would have thought of anything like the way it is now. Yeah, it's a good story. Like I don't know. I hear. So then one other interesting thing here also, just to point out that Gross was asking if they lose the muksa status for the person or just for the owner, for everybody. I believe it would be for everybody. It would lose the muksa everybody. And if you look in the end of the Shinches, is where the Alter Rebbe brings it. He holds here in Peites, all the way at the end of Shinches, that if it's that he brings here that when you have there's certain things that would have to go by in Peites, the Sif Peites, the last Sif of Shinches, there's certain things that would have to actually go by the owners. There's things that for an usher. It's all based on the lesson of the Gemara, that things that for a wealthy person, the Gemara is talking about little pieces of lavoina they're using for incense to smell, for incense and smell and the fragrances to burn, and the small pieces that they were not expensive for the Ashirim was worthless for Ashirim, but for the Aniyim it was. So there it's clear that it goes by the owner of the thing itself. That all the muksa, everything goes by the owner. If it's one for the owner himself, it's not muksa. So then for other people, it's not going to be muksa either. There's one other thing. There's an interesting point that brings up is the Chaim on the Shulchan. He's talking about Hilchas Tzeda, but it's in Siman Kofchaf Aleph Ois Dalid, and there he talks about basically an aquarium, and he's going on this hanacha. So you see from him also that he's mashma. He definitely would be basking like Alter Rebbe, and it's mashma from him that the fish in an aquarium are considered muksa. Now, although it could be that fish are different because maybe fish you don't actually touch them. I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. Maybe you don't actually touch them. Maybe that's a difference between even if you're going to use them as pets, but you don't actually usually touch them. I'm not sure. But he's going on the hanacha that they are muksa. But he says that the whole aquarium itself would take on, even though the fish themselves are muksa, but the aquarium itself would take on a noi habayis, like tachshite noi habayis. They're like things that are just decorative things that you have in your house. And he holds that those are not muksa. Like a dugma, flowers and plants. This is brought up in Megadim brings this. Flowers, pots of flower plants are always muksa. And dirt is muksa, but if flowers, plain leaves and branches are muksa, but flowers and plants and things like that are considered muksa because they're roy, even though they don't have an actual tashmish, but they're considered noi habayis. They're considered the thing is a decorative thing, so they'd be considered. The Chana holds that even if you're going to dye these things as being muksa, so it's possible by bird cages would be the same type of thing also, or any other type of things are in addition to being pets, they're also supposed to be like part of their house, and they have the cage and the whole them. So that would be mutter also. Just another point out that a lot of the places will talk about this. There's a big Rechuvas and the B'yomer on it also. But even the people who are machmer in general, if there's any time where there's a chashash of tzar balei chayim. So in general, we have this idea of tzar balei chayim, but in general, there are, this is always a sniff to be used, that there are shittas that hold that it's that everything is that all of them are not considered muksa b'chlal. One last thing
I just want to ask you, in Sivan Ches, the Alter Rebbe says that you take a sal and you can turn upside down so the freshman can jump up. So you're saying that a sal is different than the actual cage.
No, so the sal, because the sal is, because a cage, the sal, I believe the sal is talking about a very practical thing, that you weren't using this to be a place to keep your birds. You were just trying to get them to move somewhere. It's a little from Lashon the Gemara. He's talking specifically that the sal, he holds that these animals are muksa. Matter of fact, he says that the whole shot of this, the reason why you're allowed to put it there is only because you're able to get rid of them without it, because otherwise it would become muksa. But it wasn't yuchad beforehand, right? It was because, in other words, he's Reb Chaim talking about where you set up a thing you wanted specifically to be there, to be noi habayis. The case that the Rebbe is talking about is so it's, you're not really using them to be that you want that to stay in your house. It's mashma. He's dealing with the chash of a bosses with this. And just to point out one other thing is that we're running out of time. Later on, the Alter Rebbe goes on to say that assuming you have full muksa balei chayim animals that are muksa. So the Alter Rebbe goes on that generally we have a halacha that you're not allowed to be mevatel kli mehechanoi, because everything that becomes a bosses, everything that's has something on top of it, even if it's we said before that if you have to have we spoke about in the past, a bosses takes on the cloud, but it takes on the rule the status of the muksa. But here he's talking about where it wasn't on ben ishmashes, so therefore the kli itself never becomes doesn't become a basis, and the halach is, but it's still considered a basis at the time. You still have the muksa items on it, so you're not allowed to actually pick it up and move it, but you can knock it over. So they basically is coming out that mavato kli mehechanoi, and this is a cloud we have in general, is that even though anytime you're going to put a muksa item is going to fall on something, if it's a type of item that you were able to knock it over. Like there's a few series. If you look in Reish Samach Hey, Reish Samach Aleph, Reish Samach Hey, is where they deal with the Shaila. I mean, that's where the Shulchan Aruch talks about Kelim and Asunim Tachas and there. And there's it basically divides up that anything that when you have something that you're not that becomes that you're gonna muksa item is gonna fall onto. You're putting something there to catch a muksa item. If it's the type of muksa item that you have no problem knocking it over afterwards, so then it's mutter. There's no isser of mevatel kli mehechanoi because you're not really mevatel it because you're able to knock it over, and the kli would be ice muksa. It's not going to be muksa. Is not going to last there. The case the Shulchan Aruch was talking about in Reish Samach Hey is talking about a nair with the oil from the nair. So the oil of the nair, you're not going to knock it over. You're not going to spill it over. So therefore, it's usher to have the oil drip on there because of mevatel kli mehechanoi. But just one important thing we see from the Alter Rebbe here, he says, "Shaloi afabish ein kaim vitul kli mehechanu afilu lefi shah hoyel biyod la'afriach ha'afroichem ha'asal miyad she'olu ashiyardu alav or shliyamdu alav afilu rega." In other words, basically, you have nothing. You can easily knock the animals off. You can easily get rid of them. He says, "V'im hayu afroichem alas ha'ol meshach ben hashmoshes off outlo kol yom kuloi." This is the cloud we have in general, that a basis, anything that's once something was a basis for a ben ishmashas, basis l'kol yom kula. There's a lot to discuss, different details of when it could happen, not. But there's one important cloud that the Alter here says is kol eshach ben ishmashas, and in Shin Yud, Siv Zayin, he says that lashon again also. He says, "Calls have a davar shay muksa call ben ishmasha of davar shay roy ben ishmasha afilu ben miksasay levad ve'achakach niskalko be'inespa." That things are talking about what things are roy or not, but the Alter Rebbe's sheet is that, and it's the Godim has a sick on this, brings is other than Prima Godim. It's really mashma like this in Rashi, but this Rebbe's one that's very that shmash has to be the entire meshach of the entire ben mashas in order for something to be considered muksa. It's either if mixas ben mashas it was roy or it wasn't a what do you call it? It was not a deposis or mix during the mixas ben mashas. It doesn't last for the whole year. That's the Alter Rebbe Shita. And just and offer that the Tilul David, it's in. He brings it out to Rebbe in Shin Yud, and he brings here. It's the Tilul David in Shin Yud. He says he brings out the Prima Godim and is mistapik is katzay b'mixas ben hashmosha if it is katzay kol yoma, and he brings out the Rebbe. He says Harav zal daita kam b'sivzayim b'davar shay roy b'mixas ben hashmosha is katzay kol yoma. And his lashon is and he brings rayas from the Gemara in. He doesn't give any answer, but he says he's not coming to be cholik. He's just bringing up a aruch that the Gemara in Sechtes Beya was talking about when it wants to bring a case of muksa, that a person when it's talking about the mekatze esroigim and lulav for and the sukkah and the esroigim for mekatze for it. The Gemara wants to bring a case where it doesn't become muksa for the Shabbos for Yom Tov. So he says, "Call ben hashmoshes." The mashal of the Gemara is, as he specifically says, he's not being boidel from the sukkah or from the esrog, whatever the Gemara, whichever case is. But his lashon is call ben hashmoshes. The Gemara but he seems to pass him that way anyway. That in order for muksa, at least for tilto, maybe for mitzvah is different, but that it has to be in order for something to become muksa for any other type of tilto or a muksa, and go by the entire. It's not just part of it. Right.
So just by the way, the Alter in the newer print of the Alter Shulchan Aruch, it says on Siman Siman Yud. That the reason why is because b'chelik mi ben hashmashis haminan savik divrei seif lahakel.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, that's right. Right. Something ben ishmael. Everything's on the rabbanon. Right. Everything's on. Home Isser itself, and the Nishmash itself is a suffix whether when the act ben Nishmash itself is like Haravayan is just it's a split second. We just don't know when it is. Okay. All right. So I guess.
What's your suggestion for in 2 weeks? Where should we be holding? The end of Shin Yud.
Okay.
It's about 30 sifim.
I think the end of Shin probably. So 2 weeks after the end of Shin Yud is perfect.
Okay. Okay, 30 sifim.
For that, okay.
15 sifim a week.
Okay.
It's 2 sifim.
Rabbi Shok, I just have a question.
Yeah.
Is that Rabbi Shusterman?
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, just thinking about fish, about muksa or not. What does that mean in regards to fish food, the muscle? Are you allowed to feed a fish on Shabbos? In other words, being metaltel l'sperach adavar muksa. It's not something which is it's roy mitzvah.
Yeah, it's a good question. I hear. I mean, we paskin the other way. Paskin it's refers that anything that anything that's roy for behemoths that are matsui, they're not muksa. But your question would be that should be all considered tiltul l'tzarech davar hamuksa. I'm just trying to think of anybody's. I don't think.
You have a
chiyuv to feed it. Yeah.
Feed it.
I don't know. I always heard it was muksa. That's the fish food.
I don't think here. I think it's earlier. Hold on a second.
By giving gefilte fish.
Yeah, it's
maybe not.
If you look at Samach Vav, he paskins at Samach Vav. Samach Daled actually. Samach Daled. And Samach Daled out there said, "Kol davar sheroy lebachol min chayev ha'oifam mitzuya mutar l'tatloi." So it seems that even though the animals themselves are muksa, but if it's roy if it's roy for a machal, which is for behemoths that are mitzuyim, it's mutar l'tatloi. It's mitzuyim, it's mutar l'tatloi. I mean, just to point out, there's exceptions for that would be. The exceptions for that would be in Siman is if something unless the only exception for that would be really in Samaches, which is that's really they discuss at Shiloh by the way. Actually, if the raw fish, the fish in the fish tank, if it's let's say a dead fish, even if it's a raw fish, I mean, it's possible that it could be raw for sushi. Sushi.
Raw fish is raw for people.
Right. But I'm talking about the fish in the fish tank. But the raw fish is raw. As long as that would be raw. The basar chai is a big shiloh. The Shulchan Aruch paskins it's mutar l'talkoi because people eat it raw. This manazeh it's a big shiloh. It's a big Magen Avram, and the Magen Avram brings shitas about already that. Or these, I think he paskins connected. Why don't we say that because those things it's right for behemoths, but we say that machol it's a machlokes in the achronim. The beer it's a big beer locha in this prat this detail. Whether we say something right for Adam. If it's roy for chilos adam, a person's mekatza das that he's not going to give it to an animal. It's two stadim in the lashon of the Gemara. It's really coming from the lashon of the Gemara, but that would be the two svaras. In other words, raw meat is definitely roy for behemoths. We paskin as law. They don't have to be. I mean, I guess in Miami you have a lot of Jews with dogs also, but even if it's general, even if they're not only doing it, even for goyim also, as long as they're near the neighborhood, even if you have them around, they're matsui. So then, if there's anything that you could feed to them is not going to be muksa at all. Except unless it's something that's a ma'achal adam, it gets to the more that's more of a shiloh.
Okay, very good.
Okay, fine.
The fall, the Badar Shulchan mentions the air. To go to the Badar Shulchan, the chumar about the air, the Masak and Katie, the inflatable balls.
By the inflatable balls. But is it Gezerah?
Yeah.
He says a Gezerah for it, or it says a Gezerah for it? Okay, I remember hearing that from everybody.
As I
Okay,
read
fine.
about
All right.
and all that, and he says the nice is nowadays with these boats, but not Masak and Kli. You can get into the issue.
I have to take a look at it. Yeah, the Lashon, I believe it's like a medrash that the Beis Yosef brings at it's a Taisus in Beya brings us also. I don't remember there's a medrash that says that I think it was a big city, maybe Har Shimon or something like that was destroyed. It was Lechrab
Right.
because they were Mesachkin B'Kador. So there's
Right,
different
right.
sheetas. Why? What were either because of Bittul Torah or is it because of? But Taisus in Beya brings that he says they're Noiheg. They all bring that. I think it's whatever it is, a smack or Sanya from the earlier. It brings it's all Gemara. It's a Taisus in Beya that says that they're in minhag was from Mesachim B'Kador and Yom Tov and Rosh Hashanah, and he says that the minhag can play. It's a lashon of Taisus in Beya. It says a lashon that he says that they're noyeg. Siman said they're noyeg to play ball in Rosh Hashanah on Yom Tov. So
Rabbi Shesterman, what's the minhag in Coral Springs in the yeshiva? It's the minhag to be mesachik with the kadar and.
The minhag is that we stop the Bachman from playing basketball.
Okay.
Officially, we don't allow basketball, but the side is of ping pong. There's a meaning of the Rebbe about ping pong. Like I talking, but anyway, ping pong's the chayra yesh lemer. Maybe it's the second kilo, but we had Zilzul Shabbos. Ping pong seems to be less of an issue. There's a mind of the Rebbe about ping pong, about like how you talking, what's our shaila about playing on Shabbos. But officially, the rules are on that.
it says that you should
Right.
and you should. You shouldn't.
Not to.
Yeah.
The question
But
though is,
Israel and
Bachman
yeshiva bathroom play.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Rabbi Israel and yeshiva the bathroom play on Shabbos.
No,
right?
not if they're allowed. Not if they get. No, nobody plays. No. But Taisus says Taisus is dealing with the shaila whether you need tiltul for tzar. Is it needed tzar mitzvah or is it need tzar? His lashon is the gam b'til the ashkech hanami the besachim the kadosh shekor and puta whatever but the yom tov versus a rabbim I forgot like l'til. But I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, fine.
If I can just ask a quick shaila, just where in the Alter Rebbe is a mashma? You said the second opinion was roy. It's not muktzah from ayin tes. It's mashma. The behema is muktzah. I mean, I'm trying to understand where you see it. I didn't get up to here. In the
Ayin ches. You mean ayin ches?
ayin ches and ayin tes. From here to mashma behema is also to actually pick it up. Like it says in ayin tes second line.
Oh yeah, no. I'm just saying the shala was. I said the pashtus about the Rebbe is that it is aser. Pashtus is that it's aser, but you could say a samara that if he's being yichid in lekach. See, the Rebbe just says that it's aser metalto behema chayva oif because they're not roy in b'Shabbos, and even if it's roy to b'sachik behema, it's not. But he doesn't. He's talking about saying that if you be yachid a dafka for that. It's pass. I mean, Pashta says he doesn't make any chiluk, and it's mashma that it's biyasser. But the svari you could say is that if he's only talking about if it wasn't miyuchid lekach, it's just the fact that it's roy lekach doesn't change. It's not doesn't take off muksa. But if you miyachid it, like you miyachid oilam lekach, maybe. I don't know. It's possible. Definitely what the. Okay, fine. All right.
Thank you very much.
Shkoyach.
Yeah.
Okay.